I believe we have Zak Ebrahim with us this morning. He is the author of The Terrorist's Son. Good morning, Zak.
Good morning.
Welcome to the show. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I know that it's a short book. It's about 100 pages. I read the whole thing yesterday afternoon, Zak. I couldn't put it down. I really could not. The reason I wanted to talk was to try to help us understand, because a lot of people, they look at the Muslim faith and they think, radical, and that's not the intention of it, is it?
Well, no, that's one of the reasons that I wrote the book. I wanted to show people what it was like being raised in this radical ideology, and the fact that I came out of it not being radicalized was one of the main points. But I also wanted to then take that a little bit further and show people that if someone like me, who was exposed to this level of extremism, could come out of it preaching tolerance and acceptance of people who are different than myself, then what does that say about the vast majority of Muslims in the world who are never exposed to this kind of extremism?
So it's just the few, right? It's just the few that are extreme?
Absolutely. It's a very, very small percentage of them. I mean, in any religion or belief, even one that precludes religion, there are always going to be people who are willing to use horrible, violent means in order to try to make others live as they do.
So let's tell your story here. Let's bring people up to speed. Your mom was from Pittsburgh. Your father, now where was Dad from?
He was born in Egypt.
Okay. And your mother became disgruntled with the Catholic faith, right?
That's right. Well, it was, like a lot of people in their, early 20s, she was just trying to find, a philosophy that agreed with the way she saw the world. And, she tried to have a conversation with her priest about it. And he got to the point, she kept asking questions, and she wasn't trying to be combative, but, he got flustered to the point that he said, well, if you have to ask all of these questions, then you have no faith at all. And I think when she left that meeting, she decided that she was no longer a Catholic and began looking for, a new faith.
And she ended up going with the Muslim faith. She met your father. They fell in love. They married. Your father wasn't always an extremist. Did you ever really find out what made him go down that road?
I think that he had some negative experiences when he came to the United States that maybe made him disillusioned with American culture or the American lifestyle. Ultimately, that is no excuse for the terrible lengths that he went to exact revenge for this feeling of powerlessness.
And he became a terrorist, involved in a number of things, including the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. That he actually contributed to that while he was in prison, correct?
That's right. He was initially imprisoned for the assassination of Rabbi Meir Kahane in New York City in 1990. The initial police investigation had concluded that my father was a lone gunman, and many people just saw it as one extremist killing another extremist. It wasn't until after the World Trade Center bombing that they actually started going through the boxes of evidence that they found in our home the night of the assassination, that they realized that it was part of a larger cell in New York City.
Did your father hate America and Americans?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Did your father hate America and the people of America?
I think that he hated the role that the American government played in the Middle East, and I think he used that as an excuse for the violent means that he decided to exact revenge with.
Was this hidden from you at all growing up, or was it right? Were you aware of it?
Well, he didn't really become radicalized until I was about 6 or 7, maybe a year before he went to prison. So most of my memories of him as a child were, of a very engaged and loving father. He was very humorous.
Played soccer with you?
Yeah, we played soccer and baseball in the park, and, my earliest memory that I have is of my whole family going to Kennywood Park, which is an amusement park in Pittsburgh. it wasn't until close to before he went to prison that even as a 7-year-old, I noticed that he began to change.
Now, I would assume growing up, you must have been questioning things. We all do. Did you ever consider going down the road of a terrorist?
Well, in many ways, I think I was, they were trying to indoctrinate me, and I mean, my father and the other members of his group were trying to indoctrinate me into the same ideology that they belonged. And what that requires is isolation from other people, in particular the people that you're demonizing. When I got older and I actually got to experience the world and these people that I had been taught all these stereotypes about, how weak their ideology was, it almost made it easier to let go of a lot of the lessons that I was taught.
Now, you and I are talking, of course, the day before the anniversary of September 11th. Are we still at... do you think America is still in danger of another attack?
Unfortunately, I think that terrorism is a part of our lives. I don't think that we can let that potential, scare us into making poor decisions or not living our lives to the fullest.
Now, I don't know if you've read much or if you're aware about ISIS at all. Do you have any feelings about? I mean, we've heard that even Al Qaeda doesn't like ISIS.
Well, they do seem to have a particularly brutal, ideology. Trying to compare one extremist group to another. I'm not a terrorism analyst. I think that ISIS is very effective, just as Al Qaeda was in the 90s, as far as being able to perpetuate their propaganda online. I think that's one of the reasons that they, I think, are in the news so much. Just the fact that they used a Westerner in these horrible videos of the beheadings of the two journalists was obviously a deliberate action on their part to try and disseminate their propaganda amongst Westerners.
We're talking to Zak Ebrahim. Am I pronouncing your name right, Zak?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Zak Ebrahim is the author of The Terrorist's Son, and a very difficult childhood. How many schools? 20 schools that you went to?
I don't know the exact count. I'd moved 20 times by the time I was 19, most of them taking place after my father went to prison. Really his actions ripped our family apart. My mother had planned on being a housewife and raising her 3 children, and one day she's watching television, and the show she's watching is interrupted by breaking news saying that Rabbi Meir Kahana had been shot in New York City, and so had his assailant. And she saw my father, laying in a pool of blood on the side of the street, and that was really her introduction to this radical ideology.
Do you have, over the years, I'm sure you've had people ask you to try to explain this hatred towards Americans. Are you able to help? What do you say to people?
Well, it's been my experience. I've lived in the Middle East. I've spent, a lot of time in Egypt, and, it's been my experience that, the vast majority of people do not hate Americans. I think that a lot of the anger it can be pointed, I think they pointed at the American government. In fact, most Middle Eastern people love American culture. When they find out that I'm from America, all they want me to do is, speak English to them or talk to them about, pop culture and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I think, that we have this idea in our heads that, that they hate Americans, but I think it would be more accurate to say that, many people are disillusioned with American foreign policy.
All right. And quickly, I know you need to wrap up, but what do you hope the book achieves?
Well, one of the main reasons that I wrote it was I wanted to give people some insight into what it's like growing up in this extremist ideology, and to show people that I didn't become radicalized. And if someone like me who was exposed to this kind of intolerance didn't become radicalized, then what does that say about the vast majority of Muslims in the world who are never exposed to this kind of extremism?
All right. Well, Zak, thank you so much for being with us. The book is out now. It's called The Terrorist's Son, and it was great meeting you. Thank you for being on the show.
It's my pleasure. I really appreciate it.
All right.